The morning shift at Deep Watch 7 always started the same way. Technician Davies poured his third cup of coffee and settled into his chair at the sensor array. For 2 years he had watched empty space, tracking asteroids and cosmic debris. That posed no threat to anyone. The job paid well but bored him to tears. Today felt different, though. The coffee tasted bitter and the screens flickered more than usual. Davies rubbed his tired eyes and focused on the readings streaming across his monitors. Numbers, energy signatures, gravitational measurements, all perfectly normal for this sector of space. Then something changed. A new blip appeared on his screen. Faint at first, but growing stronger by the minute. Davies frowned and adjusted the sensitivity. The signal was unlike anything he had seen before. It moved too fast for an asteroid and too slowly for a comet. The energy readings made no sense at all. "Computer, run diagnostic on sensor array 7, Davies muttered, assuming the equipment was malfunctioning. He had seen false readings before when solar storms interfered with their systems. The diagnostic came back clean. Every sensor was working perfectly. The mysterious object was real and it was getting closer. Davies felt his heart rate increase as he realized what he was seeing. This was no natural phenomenon. The object had a distinct shape, elongated and smooth like a ship, but no ship in. The Imperial database matched this configuration. No ship could move at these speeds without tearing itself apart. His hands shook as he reached for the emergency communication panel. Commander Thane would not be happy about being woken up early, but this could not wait. Davies had discovered something that should not exist. "Commander Thane to the sensor station immediately," he announced over the intercom. His voice cracked slightly as he spoke. Within minutes, heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. "Commander." Thane appeared in the doorway, his uniform wrinkled and his hair messy from sleep. The man had served in the Imperial Navy for 30 years and had seen every type of crisis imaginable. "This better be important, Davies," Thane growled as he approached the console. "The last time you woke me up it was for a supply ship that forgot to broadcast its identification codes." Davies pointed to his screen with a trembling finger. "Sir, look at these readings. Unknown vessel, energy signature completely foreign to our databases. It appeared 3 hours ago and has been approaching our position ever since." Thane studied the display carefully. His expression changed from annoyance to concern as he absorbed the information. The object was definitely artificial, definitely under intelligent control, and definitely not from any known civilization. "Where did it come from?" Thane asked quietly. "Unknown, sir. It just appeared on our sensors as if it materialized from nothing. No jump signature, no engine trail, nothing to indicate how it arrived in this system." The commander felt a cold chill run down his spine. In all his years of service, he had never encountered anything like this. The Galactic Empire had mapped every star system within 1,000 light years. Every species had been contacted, cataloged, and either recruited or eliminated. There were no unknowns left in this galaxy. "Calculate its current trajectory," Thane ordered. Trying to keep his voice steady, Davies worked frantically at his controls. Numbers flashed across the screen as the computer processed the data. When the results appeared, both men stared in disbelief. The ship was heading directly toward the core systems of the Empire. Its current course would take it through 12 inhabited star systems, including the capital world of Centris Prime. If it maintained its present speed, it would reach the outer colonies in less than 48 hours. "Get me fleet command on a priority channel," Thane commanded, "and prepare a full sensor report. Everything we have on this contact." As Davies established the communication link, the unknown ship continued its relentless approach. The energy readings were growing stronger, suggesting the vessel was not only massive but powered by technology far beyond. Imperial Understanding. Admiral Brooks appeared on the main view screen within minutes of receiving the emergency transmission. Her weathered face showed the strain of too many sleepless nights dealing with border conflicts and pirate raids. "Commander Thane, you have 15 seconds to convince me this is worth interrupting my staff meeting," she said curtly. "Admiral, we have detected an unidentified vessel approaching Imperial space." Unknown configuration, unknown propulsion system, unknown origin. It is heading directly for our core worlds. The Admiral's expression changed instantly. She leaned forward in her chair, studying the data that Davies was transmitting to Fleet Command. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "Our intelligence networks cover the entire galaxy. Nothing this large could have escaped our notice." "Unknown, ma'am. The ship appears to have capabilities that violate our understanding of physics. It is traveling at velocities that should be impossible for a vessel of this size." Admiral Brooks was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. An unknown ship with superior technology approaching their most important worlds. It could be an invasion force, a first contact scenario, or something even worse. "I'm declaring a fleet-wide alert," she announced. "All available ships are to converge on the projected intercept coordinates. We will meet this threat with overwhelming force." The transmission ended and Deep Watch 7 fell silent except for the humming of machinery. Davies continued monitoring the approaching vessel while Commander Thane prepared detailed reports for Imperial Command. Neither man spoke about what they were both thinking. The Galactic Empire had built its power on the assumption that they possessed the most advanced technology in the galaxy. If that assumption was wrong, if there were civilizations out there with capabilities beyond Imperial understanding, then everything would change. The unknown ship maintained its course, showing no signs of slowing or altering direction. Whatever. Intelligence controlled that vessel had a destination in mind, and it would not be deterred by the military might of the Empire. As news of the discovery spread through Imperial channels, panic began to take hold. On distant worlds, civilians looked up at the stars with new fear. Military commanders reviewed their defense plans and found them wanting. Politicians called emergency sessions to discuss threats they did not understand. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not alone, and that being alone might have been preferable to what was coming. The emergency session of the Imperial War Council convened in the deepest levels of the Centris Prime Command Center. General Hayes paced nervously around the holographic star map while other military leaders took their seats at the massive conference table. Everyone looked tired and worried. The alien ship had been traveling for 18 hours now, and every minute brought it closer to Imperial space. Scout ships had been dispatched to gather more detailed intelligence, but none had returned. Their signals simply stopped when they got within scanning range of the mysterious vessel. Admiral Brooks entered the chamber looking haggard. She had not slept since receiving the first reports from Deep Watch 7. The weight of defending an entire civilization rested on her shoulders, and she felt every pound of that responsibility. "Gentlemen, we face an unprecedented situation," she began without preamble. "Our enemy possesses technology that surpasses our own by an unknown margin. We have lost contact with 3 reconnaissance ships and 2 monitoring stations that attempted to gather intelligence on the intruder. The holographic display showed the alien ship's projected course. It would pass through the Kepler system in 6 hours, then continue toward the heavily populated core worlds. Several battle fleets were converging on intercept coordinates, but no one knew if conventional weapons would be effective. "What about the ship's configuration?" asked General Martin, commander of the Planetary Defense Forces. "Have we learned anything about its capabilities?" Brooks manipulated the holographic controls, zooming in on detailed scans of the vessel. The image was fuzzy and distorted, as if their sensors could not properly focus on its hull. "The ship is approximately 3 kilometers in length and 1 kilometer at its widest point. The hull appears to be constructed from materials unknown to Imperial science. Our sensors detect massive energy sources throughout the vessel, but we cannot determine their purpose." Colonel Reed, the Empire's chief intelligence officer, leaned forward with a concerned expression. "Admiral, my sources report widespread panic on 17 worlds. Civilian transports are fleeing the outer colonies and our communication networks are overloaded with distress calls." The panic was understandable. For 2 centuries, the Galactic Empire had maintained peace through superior military might. Their fleets could destroy entire star systems if necessary. The mere possibility that another civilization possessed greater power was terrifying to populations that had grown comfortable with imperial protection. "What attempts have been made to communicate with this vessel?" General Hayes asked. "Every method in our database," Brooks replied grimly. "Mathematical sequences, linguistic patterns from all known species, even basic pictographs. The ship maintains complete radio silence while continuing its approach." The silence in the room was broken by the arrival of Dr. Foster, the Empire's leading xenobiologist. The elderly scientist looked exhausted from analyzing the limited data available about their mysterious visitor. "Admirals, Generals, I have completed my preliminary analysis of the sensor readings," Foster announced as he activated his personal datapad. "The energy signatures detected from this vessel are unlike anything in our scientific records. The propulsion system appears to operate on principles that violate several fundamental laws of physics." "Explain," Admiral Brooks demanded. Foster manipulated his datapad, projecting complex equations into the air above the conference table. "The ship is generating a localized distortion in space-time itself. It is not traveling through space so much as bringing its destination closer to its current position. The energy requirements for such technology should be impossible to achieve." The implications were staggering. If this alien civilization could manipulate space and time itself, what other capabilities might they possess? Could they travel backwards in time? Could they alter reality to suit their needs? The questions multiplied faster than answers could be found. "Recommendations?" Brooks asked quietly. General Hayes stood and addressed the assembled officers. "We have Battle Fleet Alpha moving to intercept coordinates. 67 ships including the Dominion and her escort carriers. If diplomacy fails, we hit them with everything we have." "And if our weapons prove ineffective?" Colonel Reed inquired. Nobody answered that question. The possibility was too frightening to acknowledge directly. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, civilian populations were reacting to news of the approaching threat. On the industrial world of Nova Terra, factory workers abandoned their production lines and flooded the spaceports seeking passage to safer systems. The automated mining operations in the asteroid belt shut down as their human operators evacuated. Financial markets collapsed as investors liquidated their holdings and converted their assets to portable forms. The Galactic credit lost 30% of its value in the first hour after news broke. Emergency rationing was implemented on 12 worlds as civilian authorities prepared for the worst. Religious leaders proclaimed everything from the end times to the second coming of ancient prophecies. Some called for prayer and meditation, while others demanded immediate military action. The diversity of reactions reflected the deep uncertainty that gripped imperial society. Dr. Foster continued his analysis while the military leaders planned their response. His team of scientists worked around the clock, reviewing every piece of data collected by Imperial sensors. The alien technology remained a mystery, but patterns were beginning to emerge. "Admiral," Foster announced during a brief pause in the military discussions, "I believe this vessel may be conducting some form of detailed scan of our territories. Its trajectory suggests it is gathering intelligence rather than preparing for an immediate attack." "Intelligence for what purpose?" Brooks asked. "Unknown. However, the ship's behavior indicates careful planning and extensive knowledge of our defensive positions. This is not a chance encounter or random exploration. Someone or something planned this approach very carefully." The realization that they were facing an intelligent enemy with superior technology and detailed knowledge of Imperial capabilities was deeply unsettling. How long had this civilization been watching them? What did they know about Imperial military strength and weakness? As the hours passed, more reports arrived from across the galaxy. Civilian governments were declaring states of emergency. Military reserves were being activated. Emergency shelters were being prepared on hundreds of worlds. The alien ship continued its relentless approach, ignoring all attempts at communication while maintaining perfect course and speed toward the heart of Imperial civilization. Whatever intelligence controlled that vessel had made its decision and would not be deterred by shows of force or diplomatic overtures. Admiral Brooks stood before the holographic display showing their enemy's position. In less than 4 hours, the most powerful battle fleet in Imperial history would confront this mysterious ship. The fate of billions of people would depend on the outcome of that meeting. She only hoped their weapons would be enough. Battle Fleet Alpha assembled in formation near the outer edge of the Sol system like a wall of metal and fury. 67 warships floated in perfect geometric patterns, their hulls bristling with enough weapons to reduce a planet to cosmic dust. The flagship Dominion anchored the center of the formation, its massive bulk dwarfing even the heavy cruisers that surrounded it. Lieutenant Morris stood at his tactical station aboard the destroyer Vigilant, watching the sensor displays with growing nervousness. He had served in 3 border conflicts and participated in the subjugation of the rebel colonies in the Vega system. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for this moment. The alien ship appeared on long-range sensors as a distortion in space itself. Their most advanced scanning equipment could barely maintain a lock on the vessel, as if it existed slightly outside normal reality. The energy readings were off the charts, suggesting power sources that could fuel entire star systems. "Oh, ship's report ready for battle," announced the communications officer. "Admiral Brooks has authorized the use of antimatter weapons if conventional ordnance proves ineffective." Morris felt his stomach tighten. Antimatter weapons were reserved for planetary bombardment or the destruction of large space stations. Using them against a single ship, even one as mysterious as their current target, indicated just how seriously Fleet Command was taking this threat. The bridge of the Dominion buzzed with activity as Captain Reynolds coordinated the defensive formation. His ship carried enough firepower to level a continent, backed by the most advanced defensive systems Imperial technology could provide. If this alien vessel proved hostile, they would unleash destruction on a scale that had ended entire civilizations. "Contact. Bearing 27 Mark IV, the sensor operator announced. Range decreasing steadily. The target will enter our engagement envelope in 23 minutes. Reynolds studied the tactical display showing their enemy's approach. The alien ship maintained perfect course and speed, showing no reaction to the massive fleet blocking its path. Either its crew was supremely confident or they simply did not consider Imperial forces a threat. "Open a channel to all ships," Reynolds commanded. "This is Fleet Admiral Reynolds of the Imperial Navy. Unknown vessel, you are approaching restricted space. State your intentions immediately or face the consequences." The transmission echoed across all frequencies, broadcast in every known language and communication protocol. The response was the same silence that had greeted all previous attempts at contact. Dr. Walsh, the fleet's science officer, monitored the alien ship from his station in the research bay. His instruments detected energy patterns that defied explanation. The vessel's hull seemed to absorb and redirect their scanning beams, making detailed analysis nearly impossible. "Admiral," Walsh reported over the intercom, "the target is scanning our formation with unprecedented precision. Their sensors are penetrating our shields and analyzing our weapon systems in real time." The implications were chilling. Not only did the alien ship possess superior technology, it was actively studying Imperial capabilities while ignoring their demands for communication. This was either supreme arrogance or evidence of power so overwhelming that they simply did not consider the fleet a threat. Across the formation, weapons officers charged their primary batteries. Particle beam destroyers powered up their main guns. Missile cruisers loaded their antimatter warheads. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier decks and took defensive positions around the larger ships. The alien vessel continued its steady approach, neither accelerating nor changing course. As it drew closer, the fleet's sensors detected something that sent chills through every crew member who saw the readings. The ship was not just scanning them, it was actively analyzing their molecular structure as if preparing to disassemble their vessels atom by atom. "Range to target, 15,000 kilometers in closing," the tactical officer reported. All weapons are locked on target and ready to fire on your command, sir. Reynolds gripped the armrests of his command chair. 15,000 kilometers was point-blank range for the weapons his fleet carried. At this distance, nothing could survive the combined firepower of Battlefleet Alpha. Nothing conventional. Anyway, then, without any warning or change in the energy readings, the alien ship simply stopped. It hung motionless in space, still and silent, as if waiting for something. The sudden halt defied every law of physics the Imperial Navy understood. No ship could decelerate that quickly without tearing itself apart. "Sir," the communications officer announced in a shaky voice, "we are receiving a transmission." The main view screen flickered and displayed what appeared to be the interior of the alien ship. The image was crystal clear despite the distance, showing a chamber filled with soft light and strange geometric patterns. A figure stepped into view, unmistakably human in appearance but wearing clothes of an unfamiliar design. "Imperial forces." The figure spoke in perfect standard Imperial. "This is Captain Ward of the exploration vessel Perseverance. We apologize for any alarm our arrival may have caused. We have been traveling for a very long time and request permission to approach Earth." The words hit the assembled fleet like a physical blow. Human? But that was impossible. The Empire maintained detailed records of every human colony, every exploration mission, every generation ship that had ever left Earth. There were no unaccounted human populations anywhere in the galaxy. Captain Reynolds found his voice first, though it cracked slightly as he spoke. "Captain Ward, identify yourself and your point of origin. How do you possess technology unknown to the Empire?" The figure on the screen, Ward, smiled sadly. "Our colony ship left Earth in the year 2157, bound for the Andromeda Galaxy. We have spent the last 300 years developing our civilization in exile. We have returned to find our homeworlds changed." The bridge of the Dominion fell silent as the implications sank in. A human colony in Andromeda? The energy requirements for intergalactic travel were staggering. No human technology from the 22nd century could have achieved such a feat, yet the evidence floated before them in space. "That is impossible," Reynolds stated flatly. No human colony ship possessed the capability for intergalactic travel. "Our records show that all generation ships remained within this galaxy." Ward's expression grew more serious. "Your records are incomplete, Admiral. The expedition to Andromeda was classified at the highest levels. Only a few hundred people knew of our departure, and they kept the secret well. We left a dying world behind, seeking something better among distant stars." Lieutenant Morris monitored the conversation from his station, his mind reeling from the revelations. If these claims were true, then everything the Empire believed about human expansion was wrong. There were human civilizations out there that had developed beyond Imperial understanding. "Prove your claims," Reynolds demanded. "Transmit your historical records and genetic profiles for verification." "Of course," Ward replied. "However, I must warn you that what you learn may challenge many of your assumptions about human potential and the nature of progress itself." Data streams began flowing from the alien ship to the Imperial fleet. The information was overwhelming: genetic sequences that were recognizably human but enhanced in ways Imperial science could not explain, historical records of a colony that had achieved wonders beyond imagination, and technological specifications that made their most advanced systems look primitive. Dr. Walsh analyzed the incoming data with growing amazement. "Admiral," he reported privately, "these genetic profiles are definitely human in origin, but they show modifications that should be impossible. Enhanced neural capacity, improved cellular regeneration, increased physical capabilities. It is as if they have engineered themselves into something beyond baseline humanity." The revelations kept coming. The colonists had not just survived their journey to Andromeda, they had thrived. They had encountered other species and learned from them. They had developed technologies that transcended the limitations of conventional physics. They had become something more than human while remaining fundamentally human at their core. As the data continued to flow, Captain Reynolds realized that everything was about to change. The Galactic Empire had been built on the assumption that they represented the pinnacle of human achievement. That assumption was now crumbling before their eyes. The humans had returned from Andromeda, and they brought with them possibilities that the Empire had never imagined. The neutral meeting station materialized in space between the two fleets like a crystal flower blooming in the void. Neither Imperial nor Andromedan in design, it appeared to be constructed from pure energy held in a stable pattern by forces beyond current understanding. The structure pulsed with soft light that somehow seemed both alien and familiar. Dr. Foster stared at the readings from his scientific instruments aboard the research vessel Discovery. The station had been created in less than an hour using matter drawn from nearby asteroids. The engineering involved was centuries beyond anything in Imperial databases, yet the basic principles seemed almost elegant in their simplicity. "How are they doing this?" whispered his assistant, Dr. Park, as she monitored the energy signatures streaming from the Andromedan ship. "They are literally restructuring matter at the atomic level without any visible machinery or power sources." Foster shook his head in wonder. 3 decades of studying alien technologies had not prepared him for capabilities like these. The colonists had clearly learned things during their time in Andromeda that fundamentally changed their understanding of reality itself. Captain Ward materialized on the station using what appeared to be a transportation system that converted matter to energy and back again. He was tall and lean with graying hair and eyes that held the weight of centuries. His clothes were simple, but made from materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid silk. Admiral Brooks led the Imperial delegation. Accompanied by General Hayes and Dr. Foster, they arrived by conventional shuttle, their primitive transportation method highlighting the vast technological gap between the two civilizations. The contrast was not lost on anyone present. The meeting chamber was sparse and functional, with chairs that molded themselves to each occupant and a central holographic display that could present information in ways the human brain could easily process. Ward gestured for his guests to be seated, his movements graceful and confident. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," Ward began, his voice carrying subtle harmonics that suggested extensive vocal modification. "I know our arrival has caused considerable alarm throughout your territories. That was never our intention." Admiral Brooks studied the man across from her with professional interest. Her concealed sensors detected biological readings that were recognizably human but enhanced far beyond baseline specifications. His cellular structure showed modifications that should have been impossible to achieve without killing the subject. "You claim to be human," she stated carefully, "yet your capabilities suggest otherwise. How do we know you are not some alien species using human appearance to deceive us?" Ward smiled with genuine amusement. "A reasonable question. Would you like me to provide DNA samples for analysis? I assure you that we are as human as you are, though we have chosen to become more than our ancestors ever imagined possible." He gestured, and a small device appeared in his palm. Without any visible discomfort, Ward extracted a tissue sample and placed it in the device. The molecular analysis was completed within seconds, and the results appeared on the chamber's central display. The genetic profile was unmistakably human in origin, but it had been modified in ways that Imperial science could barely comprehend. Enhanced neural pathways, improved cellular regeneration, increased physical strength and endurance. The colonists had essentially redesigned themselves while maintaining their fundamental humanity. "This is impossible," Dr. Foster muttered as he studied the data. The level of genetic engineering required for these modifications should have taken centuries to develop, and the energy requirements would be enormous. "Not impossible," Ward corrected gently. "Simply different. In Andromeda, we learned that the universe contains possibilities that this galaxy has not yet discovered. We encountered species that taught us to see reality from new perspectives." General Hayes leaned forward with obvious skepticism. "You expect us to believe that you learned this technology from aliens? That some other species just handed you the secrets of matter manipulation and genetic enhancement?" Ward's expression grew more serious. "Not handed, General, earned. The Species we encountered in Andromeda do not give knowledge freely. They require proof that a civilization is ready to handle such power responsibly. The process took us nearly 2 centuries to complete. The implications were staggering. These colonists had not just survived their journey to another galaxy. They had been tested and found worthy by civilizations that possessed godlike powers. They had proven themselves capable of handling technologies that could reshape reality itself. What did you have to prove? Brooks asked quietly. That we could advance without destroying ourselves or others? That we could develop beyond the need for conquest and domination? That we could become something greater than what we were without losing what made us human? The words hung in the air like an accusation. The Galactic Empire had been built on conquest and domination. Their entire civilization was structured around the principle that might made right and that superior technology justified the subjugation of lesser species. Ward continued speaking, his voice carrying undertones of sadness. We have been watching your empire for decades, hoping to see signs that humanity had chosen a different path. Instead, we found a civilization that had embraced everything our ancestors sought to escape. Our empire has brought peace and prosperity to billions of beings, Hayes protested. We have unified the galaxy under a single government and eliminated the wars that once plagued this region of space. At what cost? Ward asked. How many species have you eliminated because they refused to submit? How many worlds have you stripped of resources to fuel your expansion? You have created peace through fear and called it progress. The accusations hit their targets with uncomfortable accuracy. The Empire's history was filled with conquered worlds and extinct species. Entire civilizations had been wiped out for the crime of resisting imperial expansion. The official histories called these victories necessary for galactic peace and stability. Dr. Foster found himself wondering what humanity might have become if they had chosen cooperation over conquest. The colonists represented an alternate path, a version of humanity that had transcended their limitations without losing their souls. Why have you returned? Brooks asked. After 3 centuries of independence, why come back to a galaxy you clearly view as barbaric? Ward was quiet for a long moment, his enhanced eyes reflecting depths of experience that spanned centuries. Because this is still our home galaxy. Because there are billions of humans here who deserve better than what your empire offers. Because we believe that people can change and grow if given the opportunity. The meeting continued for hours as Ward shared carefully selected information about Andromedan civilization. He spoke of cities that floated among the stars, of planets restored from ecological disaster, of species working together to explore the deepest mysteries of existence. It was a vision of what the galaxy could become if its inhabitants chose cooperation over competition. As the discussions progressed, it became clear that the colonists were not invaders in any conventional sense. They possessed the power to destroy the empire without effort, but their goal was transformation rather than conquest. They wanted to show humanity and its subject species that there were alternatives to the current system. What happens now? Admiral Brooks asked as the meeting drew to a close. Ward smiled sadly. That depends entirely on your choices, Admiral. We offer partnership and knowledge to any who seek genuine progress. We will not force change upon unwilling populations, but neither will we allow the continued oppression of those who seek freedom. The implications were clear. The Empire could choose to evolve or face inevitable replacement by civilizations that had already transcended its limitations. The age of conquest and domination was ending, whether imperial leaders accepted that reality or not. As the delegations prepared to return to their respective fleets, Dr. Foster realized that everything was about to change. Humanity had returned from the stars carrying gifts beyond imagination, but the price of those gifts might be the transformation of everything they had built. The question was whether the Empire would choose evolution or extinction. The transformation began subtly at first. On remote frontier worlds where imperial control was weakest, strange events started occurring. Polluted rivers suddenly ran clean. Barren fields burst into bloom overnight. Disease outbreaks vanished. without explanation. Local populations whispered of miraculous healers who appeared without warning and disappeared. Just as quickly, Dr. Foster coordinated the investigation from his research station. Orbiting Centris Prime, reports flooded in from across the galaxy describing technologies that seemed to operate more like magic than science. Environmental restoration projects that should have taken decades were completed in days. Medical procedures that cured genetic disorders thought to be incurable. They are not waiting for official permission, Foster reported to Admiral Brooks during their weekly briefing. The Andromedans are making contact with individual populations and offering assistance directly. Our planetary governors are reporting situations they cannot explain or control. Brooks studied the data streaming across her personal displays. 15 worlds have reported contact with Andromedan representatives in the past week alone. In each case, the interactions followed the same pattern: assessment of local needs, offers of assistance, and demonstrations of capabilities that defied Imperial understanding. "What do these contacts want in return?" she asked. "Nothing, apparently. They provide aid and education, then withdraw. The only common factor is that populations who receive assistance begin questioning Imperial policies and demanding more autonomy." The pattern was clear. The colonists were undermining Imperial authority not through force but through demonstration of alternatives. They showed oppressed populations what was possible and let human nature do the rest. People who had lived under Imperial rule for generations suddenly saw that other options existed. On the mining world of Kepler Prime, workers had endured toxic conditions and shortened lifespans for decades. The Empire considered their sacrifice necessary for galactic prosperity. When Andromedan medical teams arrived and reversed years of chemical damage in a matter of hours, the miners began asking why their own government had never provided such aid. Commander Stone observed the changes from his orbital command post above the planet. Work stoppages had become common as miners demanded better conditions and medical care. Production quotas were falling behind schedule for the first time in 40 years. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving another transmission from the planetary surface. The mining consortium is requesting immediate medical supplies and environmental cleanup crews." Stone shook his head in frustration. The miners had seen what was possible and would no longer accept what they had been given. The Andromedans had opened a door that could never be closed again. Similar scenarios played out across the Empire. Agricultural worlds demanded the ecological restoration technologies they had witnessed. Industrial planets refused to accept pollution levels that had been considered normal for centuries. Colonial populations began asserting rights they had never known they possessed. The Imperial Senate convened an emergency session as reports of civil unrest reached the capital. Senator Williams from the Outer Rim colonies stood before the assembled representatives with obvious anger. "My constituents are in open rebellion," he announced. "They have seen what these Andromedans can accomplish, and they demand to know why their own government has provided so little. How do I explain that we chose oppression over advancement?" Similar statements echoed throughout the chamber as representatives from hundreds of worlds reported the same problems. Populations that had been passive for generations were suddenly demanding change. The careful balance of power that had maintained imperial stability was crumbling. Emperor Martinez listened to the debates from his private chamber, his advisors surrounding him with grim expressions. The man who ruled a galaxy found himself facing a crisis that military force could not solve. The Andromedans were winning without fighting a single battle. "What are our options?" he asked Admiral Brooks. "Limited, Your Majesty. We cannot attack them without triggering the very revolution we are trying to prevent. Their technology is so far beyond ours that any military action would likely fail catastrophically. Our best intelligence suggests they have the capability to shut down our infrastructure without harming civilian populations." The realization was bitter. The Empire had built its power on technological superiority, but now faced beings whose capabilities made their greatest weapons look like primitive tools. Force, their ultimate argument, had become irrelevant. Captain Ward continued his diplomatic mission. meeting with planetary leaders and civilian organizations throughout Imperial space. His ship traveled openly between star systems, ignoring attempts at interdiction while broadcasting messages of hope and possibility. "The future belongs to all thinking beings," he announced during a public address transmitted across the galaxy. "We offer partnership to any world or species willing to embrace genuine progress. No one will be forced to change, but everyone deserves the opportunity to choose their own destiny." The message resonated with billions of beings who had lived under imperial rule without hope of improvement. Subject species that had been conquered centuries ago began demanding independence. Human colonies sought representation in decisions that affected their lives. Even core worlds started questioning the necessity of their vast military expenditures. Dr. Park analyzed the social changes from her position at Imperial Intelligence. "The Empire is fragmenting," she reported to her superiors. "Not through external conquest but internal transformation. People are choosing the Andromedan vision over our own." The statistics supported her assessment. Recruitment for Imperial military service had dropped by 60%. Tax collection was becoming increasingly difficult as worlds withheld payments in protest. Trade agreements were being renegotiated as planets demanded better terms. Most importantly, the subject species were awakening to possibilities they had never imagined. The lizard-like Reptani began developing their own space travel capabilities after centuries of dependence on Imperial transportation. The insectoid hive minds started establishing direct diplomatic relations with other species. The plant-based Verdani reclaimed their homeworld and began ecological restoration projects. Emperor Martinez realized that the empire was dying not from external attack but from internal evolution. The arrival of the Andromedans had triggered changes that could not be stopped or reversed. His civilization was transforming into something entirely different. "What do you recommend?" he asked his council during what would be their final meeting as an imperial government.